Hey Luca, how have you been? How many disturbing books have you read since I was gone? That many? Wow. Well, here's some more for you to get traumatized. And if there's anything I've learned during my time away from the camera, it's that we don't need to do a whole lot of yapping. We can just get right into it, right? So I have four books and we're going to talk about them. I'm a little rusty. But before we get started, and I know that's become kind of a catchphrase of mine, but before we get started, I actually do have quite an amazing announcement to make on here. So some of you might remember I wrote a short story collection a couple years ago called Poking Holes. A lot of you bought it to support me, and I love you all for that. And a lot of you told me that it was really fucked up, and that's words that I hold near and dear to my heart every day. Well, Poking Holes has officially been reprinted, and it has been picked up by Apocalypse Party Press. And any fans of my channel, longtime fans of my channel, will know and remember this name. Apocalypse Party Press is a indie press based out of Philadelphia that I have loved and championed for years now. So it was an extreme shock to me when they not only accepted the manuscript for Poking Holes, but also gave it some very, very kind and supportive words and just kind of expedited the whole reprint process for me. It was quite amazing. So yes, it has a new cover. It has a new home. It now shares a home with some of the most respected indie horror authors in my heart and in my mind. So that's pretty amazing. So yeah, I don't know how many of you noticed, but Poking Holes was actually out of print for a couple of months, but it's back out now with a brand new, beautiful cover designed by Matthew Revert. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And yeah, Ben over at Apocalypse Party Press was just immense help and support and just gave the book such kind words that are really touching. So yeah, now if you missed out on the previous releases, you can pick it up as part of Apocalypse Party. Awesome. So the first disturbing book I have here for you all is Mercy by Andrea Dworkin. Some of you might remember this name if you watched the video I did on Pure by Peter Sotos. One of her nonfiction books on pornography was quoted heavily in that. Andrea Dworkin is quite a controversial figure in sort of the late 20th century literary spaces of America. She was known basically as this crazy feminist who wanted to ban porn because she thought it was dehumanizing for women. Yes, she did hate porn. She did want to ban it, and she did view it as dehumanizing to women. But anybody who sat down and read her nonfiction, actually read it, I feel, would know that her claims are not as extreme and black and white as most sort of contemporary sources will have you believe. It was actually quite a nuanced study on suffering and basically the capturing of suffering through images and the transubstantiation almost of turning that captured suffering into somebody else's pleasure. And these are, of course, phenomenological, metaphysical topics that she tackled with just such ease and such confidence. And of course, as a woman tackling topics like this, she was absolutely hated, pushed out of most thinking circles back in her day. She has passed away, and her legacy has not really been that much repaired. However, few people know she actually wrote fiction along with her nonfiction. And this is one of those novels that she wrote, but it's actually sort of based on reality. It's based on some of her own personal experiences with some partners, her own personal struggles with abuse, with being a victim, and she novelizes it here in Mercy. Now, Mercy is a novel that just follows this nameless narrator. Again, we think she is a sort of fictionalized version of Andrea Dworkin, and it basically details the abuse that she suffers at the hands of her lover slash abuser. But the way that it is detailed, it is sort of routine in that we sort of every night return to the bedroom, to the abuse, to the bondage. But she sort of starts to mechanically tell the account of this suffering and also intersperses it with sort of very normal day-to-day activities that she does. She'll talk about going out, meeting some friends for a drink, and then she returns and is abused by her husband, and it kind of becomes a part of her routine. Routine, I think, is a is a key word here. The way that Andrew Dworkin displays the way that violence and abuse and bondage can become routine in these sort of quotidian settings. And the way that it is written, you just kind of more and more as the pages go, the abuse becomes more and more imposing, so that you come to expect it along with the narrator, and you come to normalize it in a way. It becomes sort of like this droning background noise. But when you think about it in terms of this is someone's lived reality, of course, it's highly horrific. One of the most suffocating books I've ever read. You literally feel the walls closing in on our main narrator the more that time goes by. Yeah, I don't know what else to say on it. Andrew Dworkin just really captures that voice of someone held in captivity, again, from real life experience. That's what makes it all the more upsetting, I guess. But yeah, Mercy by Andrew Dworkin. All right, up next, I want to talk about some nonfiction. This is An American Genocide: The United States and the California Indian Catastrophe by Dr. Benjamin Madley. This is an account of basically all of the murders, killings, massacres, dehumanizations, rape, torture, everything that American natives suffered at the hands of first Spanish colonizing forces, and then later on in California as more and more settlers drove in during the gold rush. What Benjamin Madley is doing in this book is basically building a case for calling what happened to Native people in California a genocide. In fact, this was published in 2017. 2 years later, in 2019, California Governor Gavin Newsom issued a formal apology for the first time in the history of California, recognizing the violence that Native people lived here as a genocide. So this has had great historic effects since its publication, and I think it continues to have them. Here in California, we continue to evaluate the legacy of genocide and how it's truly affected and continues to affect Native people. Some of you might recall from previous videos that I've made, I've taken on the duty of being an advocate and an ally for Native people here in my little desert community. So this came as indispensable reading to me to sort of understand what that history's been like. Not just erasure, not just pretending that Native people don't exist because we've pushed them to the fringes of society and forced them into reservations. You know, it's not just that, but knowing, you know, what really happened in California. You know, the understanding of you know, mission natives in California having been in harmonious coexistence with colonizers. There's just so much mythology that gets dispelled here. And it's just constant accounts of all the violence that Native people suffer here. From northern to southern California, it covers the entire immense state. And it's just snippets of evidence of genocide. Massacre after massacre, dehumanizing rhetoric. Right now, I'm sure you saw my little thingy right here. There's something very similar going on overseas, something that I can't speak too much on unless I learn what the restrictions of free speech are here on YouTube, because there are some, as I understand it, but very similar, very similar. A lot of the natives retaliated after suffering decades of injustice and torture and murder. And Americans sort of said, well, see, that justifies all of our violence. Where have you heard that recently in the news? You know what I mean? It's the same thing. And as Native people say, they were an experiment. They were an experiment to the genocidal campaigns that America then went on to fund and facilitate across the world. It starts here, and Benjamin Madley just has such a steady grasp of history. He doesn't let any detail go by unnoticed, and more importantly, he includes various examples of Native people speaking on their own genocide right as it was happening, historical first-hand accounts from Native people who suffered at the hands of colonizers, of soldiers, of gold miners. So it's showing, you know, those voices were always there. We're always there calling out genocide. And this is just such important history to know. I think everybody who is a settler, as I am, in California, should read this. They should really educate themselves on what happened here. And I tell you, once you understand what happened here, in the US, in California, the barbaric things that our tax dollars are funding overseas will no longer seem outrageous to you. And that has been absolutely my experience since reading that a couple of months ago. All right, moving on to more fiction. This is Waste by Eugene Martin. This is basically a super short novel about a dude who works as a custodian in a building, but he's sort of developed his own language to where everything that passes through him, you know, all the waste that is, you know, part of his job to clean up, but also all the interactions he has with people who live in the building that he cleans up. All of this sort of amounts to a non-human language where most of the story, or at least most of the repertoire of characters and happenings around the building, are told through the waste that our main character sort of takes as his duty to clean up, and he observes the waste. And that's all I can say. Now you're probably thinking that this is kind of like a disgusting book affair, you know, that there's going to be constant descriptions of just gross shit found in the garbage, and, you know, just revealing the underbelly of human debauchery, things like that. But it's not really like that. It's more actually in the sort of decadent vein of somebody like Joris Karl Huysmans, whose book was one of the entries on the first Disturbing Books video I made. Something like that, where it's more not just the base grossness of it, but kind of like the work of interiority in the book really places you in this disassociated state, for lack of a better term, where you are no longer considering humanity through, you know, the usual positings of you know, being dignified, civilized, but rather we get to know people through the objects that are the base of their neuroses. You know, we get to know them through their waste, creating sort of a parallel language to what is quotidian life. It's very fascinating, disturbing and disconcerting only in that meditative sense, though. Don't think it's gonna be like gross in your face, but I tell you, reading some of these passages, the numbness kind of washed over me in really unsettling ways. You really lose track of the voice of humanity here sometimes, and it's pretty cool. So, and now lastly for this video, I have a comic book. This is, well, the title's on the back, Dream of the Bat, but look at this cover. So this is about Batman and the Joker down there, but this is not your dad's Batman and Joker, as you know. This is by Josh Simmons and Patrick Keck. Josh Simmons I've actually met and become good friends with over on Instagram. A fantastic guy, super nice. He sent me this to review, and I gotta tell you, the ideas in here are so disconcerting. It's basically, I think, an exploration of Batman's life, you know, his duty as a fighter of crime, as the Joker's sworn enemy. But, you know, it's drawn, first of all, very crudely. There are airs of Mike Diana in here. Mike Diana was a central piece to a video I made on transgressive comics. This is visual transgression at its best, in my opinion. There's just so much exploration of Batman's fucked up psychology and the fucked up relationship that he has with the Joker, but it's done in a serious vein. It's not even like grittiness, kind of like you'd expect from The Dark Knight. It's just more like surreal, feverish madness, but there's an unseriousness throughout the whole thing. Don't think it's like this gritty, you know, realistic exploration of Batman. No, it's actually quite goofy and comic-like, but that tone of unseriousness really makes the really fucked up explorations of Batman's day-to-day activities here pack a much bigger punch, because you don't really expect them out of this colorful, cute little comic book. But I tell you, I've never read a Batman comic book in my life. This is the first one, I guess you could say, and I gotta tell you, if all Batman comics were like this, you consider me the biggest fan. This is Batman for fans of transgression. There is poop, there is blood, there is goring, there is mutilation. Everything you can think of is in here. But at the end, you really come away feeling for the guy. So there's an absurd, delirious empathy to the Batman character studies in here, and that's as best as I can explain it. Dream of the Bat by Josh Simmons. This was actually one of my favorite reads of 2023. So if that means anything to you, go ahead and get a hold of it if you can. I don't know if it's in print or not, but I'm sure you can find it in some way. But yeah, Batman and the Joker get into some really freaky shit in here. So it has the Plagued by Visions seal of approval. So those are 4 really, really disturbing, fucked up books that really, really ruined quite a couple of days for me in the past couple of months. Hope you all enjoyed that. I'm just trying to get back into the groove of things, and I thought, what better way to do that than to talk about really fucked up books? So there you go. Like I said, Poking Holes by yours truly is out at Apocalypse Party. Get your copy, link in the description, all of that. You can join my Patreon and support me so I don't starve, all that good stuff. And I'm gonna try to get back on here, get back on the routine of talking about really messed up books and having discussions with you all, my beautiful, beautiful audience. So hope you're all well, continue to stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.